When it comes to privacy, the 80-20 rule applies more or less in the sense that the first and the easiest portions of the steps you can take will actually lead to the most dramatic results. While everybody has a different version of what their ideal privacy looks like, it's at least good to know all of one's options and the trade-offs that they carry. One of the first and most effective options you have, at least on Android, sorry iOS users, is the option called FOSS apps, or free and open source software apps. They're pretty easy to use and vary in quality, but they're definitely worth checking out. I figured I'd break this down into two parts, mostly because I'm feeling a little lazy here. And this time, I'll cover how to get these apps and my favorite ones right now, and then next time, when I get around to it, I'll cover web wrappers, which is a fancy way of saying third-party clients for proprietary software, such as YouTube or Twitter or something like that instead uses the website version of these services as the base of the app. The process here is pretty simple, actually. Say you take notes on your phone with Evernote or Google Keep or OneNote or whatever other note-taking app you use. Instead of using one of these services, you might consider downloading an app such as Notely. You can weigh the pros and cons of each new app, such as with Notely, you get much better privacy with both your notes and your actions taken within the app, staying on your phone and never going to a remote server. But the trade-off, however, is the fact that instead of having real-time sync between devices, that is replaced with the capability to export the notes to a backup file. And in my case, for example, I don't sync notes like that anyway, so in that case, Notely is great for me. I'm sure you get the picture, but before I list off my favorite, I just want to skim over how to actually get them. So, in order to get these apps, you need to download the App Store FDroid, though it is worth pointing out that some of these apps at least can also be found on Google Play. FDroid is an app store that only hosts free and open source software apps, and while I would always recommend caution when downloading things recommended by random strangers online, and extra research never hurt, it does have my metaphorical stamp of approval. If you choose to install it, you can find it at f-droid.org, and while you can download apps from within a web browser, I would highly recommend downloading and installing the FDroid store itself. And if you've never installed an app without going through Google Play, you probably just need to enable third-party apps in your settings, and then after the installation process, you will also be prompted to allow FDroid to install apps like any other app store. Quick side note, while you might be worried that it could be sketchy given FDroid is not allowed on Google Play, that's just because Google doesn't like competition on their own app store, which, it's in a sense, it's hard to blame them, and it's not because FDroid is unsafe or otherwise would violate Google's policies. Once you've gotten through the installation process, you're all set. There's no need for accounts or anything, but otherwise it functions just like any other app store. You can browse categories or search out specific apps or update/uninstall apps that you've already installed. It really is just that easy. Moving on, I'll cover some of my favorite apps, with the exception of web wrappers, which I'm putting off till later, and all of these options can be found on the FDroid store, and I've used all of them, and that isn't to say that they're the be-all end-all. You might find other apps that you consider better, and/or have no use for these apps, but if you're looking to just check out FOSS apps, these are actually probably a good place to start. First, there's Aegis Authenticator. This is a pretty simple two-factor authentication app, and since 2FA uses a seed to mathematically get your code, this authenticator is capable of replacing any other authenticator app, and also providing a little more privacy in the meantime. And then there's Audio Recorder. It's just a simple audio recorder that functions exactly as intended. Briar. Briar is a peer-to-peer message system, which provides a lot of capabilities and privacy at the cost of being a bit clunky, and it may be worth checking out if you like toying around with that sort of stuff. Classy Shark Exodus and Exodus, both of these apps can scan other apps and will tell you what trackers have been found within the app. If you don't know, a tracker is simply a way of sending data from the app, such as usage habits, to a remote server operated by the app developers. Some apps need trackers, either because, adds to their business model, or it's required for services like crash reports, and/or they believe it'll offer the user a better experience at the cost of some privacy, but you will notice that most FOSS apps do lack trackers. The DuckDuckGo Privacy Browser. This is a super simple browser that allows you to browse the web while blocking some trackers, scripts, and ads, and then immediately clearing the browsing data when you're done. It probably won't replace your main browser if you intend to leave it signed in to certain accounts, but it'll be great if you want to perform a random web search or sign into an account, but you don't need to stay signed in afterwards, and you want the privacy of clearing all data once you're done. Equate. Equate is a super powerful tool dedicated to converting units, You can convert standard things such as, imperial to metric and vice versa, as well as things between, everything from currencies to inflation numbers. It works offline, though I can imagine that currencies might not be totally accurate unless it's online, but overall, it's a great tool, and it's the kind of thing where you don't think of it until you need it, and then it's extremely useful. Games. Two games that I've enjoyed from FDroid are Anato TD, which is a simple tower defense game, and Unciv, which is basically a Civilization or Catan knockoff. Then there's GCam Services Provider, which I actually wrote about recently, and it's a super simple app that pretends to be Google services, just so that you can run Google Camera on an app that doesn't have Google services installed. It really only applies to a specific set of circumstances, but it is actually really handy if you need it. And then there's KeePass DX. I wrote about KeePass nearly a year ago now, but it's my favorite password manager by far, and the mobile client is perfect for keeping your passwords secure on a handheld device. And there's KeyWix. It's a tool that allows you to download data for offline reading. Most notably, it allows you to download copies of Wikipedia, which I recommend the simple English version to get the most pages without costing a ton of storage, assuming English is your native language, as well as a number of other things such as TED Talks and the like. KO Reader. KO Reader is an ebook reader that allows you to read most ebooks, assuming they have no DRM on them. And on Kindle, it's up to the author whether the ebook has DRM on it or not. Sites like Smashwords sell DRM-free ebooks, and sites like the Gutenberg Project have a huge selection of ebooks that are in the public domain. LibriTorrent is just a pretty simple piece of torrenting software. There's plenty of copyright respecting torrents and plenty more that don't, so use it on the ones that don't at your own risk, but I guess it works on all of them. There's Memetastic, which helps you create simple image-based memes, so it's definitely worth checking out. Then there's Notely, which I actually used as an example of a FOSS app, which is a great note-taking app and has most of the features of something like Google Keep, but it keeps everything local on your device, while also allowing you to export your notes to a backup file in case you damage your phone or something. OpenShot is just a simple camera app that allows a considerable amount of configuration options while also respecting your privacy, and I would definitely recommend it over most stock or default camera apps based on its features alone. Ozymandias is a maps app that uses OpenStreetMaps instead of Google Maps. It suffers a bit when it comes to indexing businesses and their addresses, and entirely lacks real-time street data, so it won't tell you if a road's closed or something like that. At the same time, however, GPS routing works perfectly fine, and you do have the option to import data such as tiles from Microsoft Maps to kind of make up for some of the missing data on OpenStreetMaps. Additionally, if you're looking for a GPS to use while hiking or doing any other activity off-road, this blows Google Maps away. It allows the creation of custom markers on the map, custom trails, and route recording, which even when I was using Google Maps primarily as a GPS, I always used Ozymandias anytime I was hiking, and so it does actually even have something going for it outside of privacy against Google Maps. There's private location, and this app, similar to fake GPS, which I wrote about a while back, allows you to spoof your location anywhere in the world. Then there's Simple Calendar and other similar apps. Simple Calendar is one of the apps developed by Tibor Kaputa, so if I'm mispronouncing that, and it's an open source privacy respecting alternative to most standard apps that you'd expect on a phone, such as calendars or calculators and a whole bunch of other devices. I've only used the calendar, which performs perfectly fine, but there's a whole bunch of other ones, and I would definitely recommend them if you're looking for just a super simple app that performs a standard function. There's also Spotify, which is an app that allows you to download Spotify songs without using the Spotify app. It might be a little iffy-ish copyright-wise, but it works perfectly fine. Siphon and Element are both Matrix clients, which work in the Matrix federated messaging system. If you want to check Matrix out, or you regularly use Matrix, those are two clients for mobile that you might want to check out. Tape Measure. This app just allows you to measure objects. You can use your phone screen or phone camera, though I haven't used the camera measurements yet, and it's one of those super simple apps that you don't think of until you need it, and then it's super helpful. There's Tasks.org, which is the name of the app, and that is a simple task reminder app that allows you to set reminders of things that you need to do or want to remember. It's super simple, but really convenient to keep track of your stuff and have reminders come in. And finally, there's VLC, which you're probably aware of. It'll play just about everything video or audio, and has a whole bunch of capabilities within it. Next, I thought I'd just cover a few honorable mentions. These are either apps that I've used, but require you to add an additional repository to FDroid, or that cannot be found on FDroid but are still FOSS apps that have been very useful to me and contain no trackers. For some apps, if the app is not on the standard FDroid repository, which holds all the main apps, you can actually go into settings and add a custom repository to allow FDroid to pull the apps off the other repositories that are holding the app that you're looking for, though not all these apps have their own custom repositories either. Bromide is the first one, which requires a repository to be added from FDroid, but is just a hardened version of Firefox that allows you to use the web from your mobile device in what I would consider a fairly ideal fashion. Then there's Coin Ping Tester, which I think is open source, but I'm not fully sure, and it just dawned on me as I'm recording this that I didn't check to see if it was. And while it's very specific in its use case and is not on FDroid and does not have its own repository, it does allow you to use the sound of a coin to determine whether it's legitimately a precious metal or not. Then there's GPS Tether, which I also forgot to check whether it was open source or not. It's also not an FDroid with no repository to add, but it's a simple app that allows you to share your GPS location from one device to another through Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. This is a great tool if you're using a device that does not have a GPS chip in it, but you want to use a GPS location with it. OpenScan, while OpenScan is not an FDroid, it's still a very useful open source tool that allows you to scan paper documents into PDFs, similar to the camera scan option on Google Drive and stuff like that. It's a really good way to declutter your mail and get rid of a whole bunch of unnecessary stuff. Well, I guess that's about everything. If you're watching this in video form, you can check the description, and I'll have sources and links and all that sort of stuff, as well as a link to the second part if it's out yet. I can assure you that web wrappers are a great tool that often exceed the capabilities of standard clients, so they will definitely be worth checking out. Anyway, thanks for watching or reading, and I hope you found this interesting.